feel free. Hola, señoritas. It's such a pleasure to be here with you. These are some of the most extraordinary Latina leaders we have across industry, so thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, so jumping in. So we're going to do quick 30-second intros. We definitely want to hear your backstory, but we want to dive into the conversation. So if you wouldn't mind, we'll start this way from left to right.
Okay, well, Cinthia Lopez. I'm originally from Honduras. I am a director at Google, but I spent 20 years at Capital One, so my entire professional career. Been a massive fan of this Alumni Society and a member probably since the very beginning, so super excited to be here.
Hello everyone, delighted to be here. Thank you so much for joining us. Eva de la Rosa, head of global payments marketing at Citigroup. Have also had a great run across the Fortune 500 with Coca-Cola, British Petroleum, and American Express.
Hi, I'm Claudia Marmolejo, also have been here from the very beginning, so I know the big leap that we've done in these rooms, so I appreciate all the efforts that Alumni Society has done for us. I am at Morgan Stanley. I'm head of key clients and also head of advisor recruiting at Morgan Stanley. I've been there for the last 16 years, and previously I worked for Citi and law firms because I'm also a lawyer.
Amazing. Aren't their backgrounds so incredible? What haven't they done? So another round of applause for them. So, over the past 2 years, we've seen a massive shift in the workplace. So not only hiring freezes to the Great Resignation and perhaps another recession. So I'm curious, how are you preparing for any potential industry disruptions, especially on the hiring front? And what shifts are you seeing in your industry? So Eva, I'm curious if we can start with you.
Sure.
And also, given that you changed your roles during the pandemic, it's really exciting.
Yeah, so it's definitely a new world order for everyone, from a shift in the labor markets to the pandemic and other economic factors. And interestingly enough, I did move from one large firm to another large firm in the thick of the pandemic, but I actually didn't plan it that way. And I think the key learning for me was to stay ready, as we often say, be prepared, be engaged, network. For me, it was a really important reminder to bet on myself and also to nurture a healthy professional network year-round, not just during turbulent times. So checking in with my family, with my friends, with my colleagues, with my mentors, and I just do that authentically throughout the year, even not calling in any favors. So that, has been my experience. I know we're calling it the Grand Resignation. I view it as the Great Reset. And so I've taken that as an opportunity to amplify, my effective communication style for my team, ensuring that I'm as empathetic as ever, ensuring that I am always present as much as possible, whether that's virtual or in person. And so just really viewing these challenging times as a reset has really been my mindset. And I really carry that forward with my teams to instill a sense of optimism and of hope, which I think are key traits in leadership, not just during turbulent times, but always.
Yeah, thank you for that. You said some gems. Make sure we're all picking up what she's putting down, because it's really good insight. I love that. And Cinthia, you also had a big career shift during the pandemic, so I'd love to hear about that, and also your take on what does it look like to develop talent, especially when it comes to Latina leadership in this context that we're living.
Yes, so I made a move from financial services to the tech sector also during the pandemic, and I love what Eva said of staying ready. There has never been more demand for talent like the one in this room, right? And the reality of we've always known what our power is, but the world is recognizing that and tapping into it. So I think that stay ready and open was key. But for me, and I think as a leader now in a new area, it is not only about attracting the talent, but retaining it. What are we doing? And I think what I was looking for, I was lucky enough to spend the first 20 years of my career at one company. Wow. And when I think about why did I stay there, I think there were 3 key things that I'm now looking to hopefully spend another 20 years, and I think that will lead me to retirement. But my move was not the next role, but could I spend 20 years? And it's belonging. Pedro talked about community. For me, belonging is incredibly important. Advancement and flexibility. And I was lucky enough to experience all of that in my current career, and I hadn't had a reason to leave. There was also an opportunity for, having had all these things, an ability to amplify my impact and give myself the gift of growth that allowed me to make the leap of faith. But as I think about now as a leader, how do I retain that talent? Am I constantly providing that flexibility, that sense of belonging, creating that in my team, and creating those opportunities where everyone feels they have an equal opportunity to succeed and fulfill their careers. So.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because the way we approach careers is shifting, right? So what you're looking for is, I'm sure resonates for a lot of us. We want to feel like we belong, community is important. And also a lot of people, especially millennials, Gen Z folks, are shifting in terms of what they prioritize.
Yes.
So looking at that, people who, they often see Gen Z as sort of disconnecting, not necessarily identifying with their careers in the way that we did in the past. So I'm curious from both of your perspectives, what is your stance on that transformation of people's identity in the workplace is changing, how they show up, and also knowing, people working remotely, like things are just changing in this new mindset of career professionals. What does that look like for you?
Sure. So it's definitely, some unprecedented times, I think for everyone for sure, but I think especially for Gen Z and millennials. And so I think that increasingly demonstrating flexibility, openness to innovation, inviting different generations to have a seat at the table for inclusivity, their point of view really matters more than ever. And I think instilling a sense of hope and optimism are important traits more than ever. And so I would argue that EQ as a leader is at a premium in society, more so probably than the hard skills. We have a lot of smart, book-savvy individuals, but I think being empathetic, being inclusive, being self-aware, being an effective communicator is absolutely at a premium, and I would say a differentiator with our customers, with businesses, in the marketplace, and certainly with shareholders. And so that, I think, is also part of the grand reset, the fundamentals.
Yeah, thank you for that.
I think the only thing I would add is, you mentioned like EQ being so much more important. I think having made a recent move, you kind of can reevaluate what your leadership style is. And I found myself being way more vulnerable and sharing way more about my personal kind of struggle as my full self. And I had a really tough May personally. My mom was sick and Honduras and passed away. But like, I shared that. I was like, I am taking time off. I'm going to Honduras. That's where I need to be. And I think the lead by example, we forget how important for Gen Zers and millennials, but for everyone, the company policies can be there, right? Like some companies have unlimited vacation, yes, 4-day work week, like flexibility, but are your leaders living that? And I think the amount of comments I got for like, thank you for sharing that, because it makes me feel like the next time I'm going through it, which like somebody once told me like, sometimes work happens during life, but sometimes life happens during work.
Yeah.
And like recognizing those moments, I think for me has been incredibly important of let's be vulnerable, right? Like if you want full Cinthia in, like I need to bring full Cinthia in, and it means sharing my own personal vulnerability more than I ever had before.
Yeah, thank you for that. And also related to how to share personal experience in community, and maybe even with coworkers you don't know that well, but having to lead by example, and maybe out of necessity, but good that it felt supported in that moment.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. And I'm sure it's something that a lot of us can resonate with. I had a loss in my family during the pandemic, and when we're on Zoom and you don't know what's going on beyond that little square, how do you show up for each other?
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that. And so this is for all of you, but Claudia, I'd love your take on this.
Sure.
You actually said something years ago about how we're not an island and that we are in community and we need to leverage that more. So what does that look like for you in terms of developing talent as well? You are quite successful in your career and you've always advocated for community, and how are we all supporting one another? So I'm curious, what does that mean in terms of organizational, even innovation, right? Like the community aspect, but in the corporate setting, how do you reconcile the two together?
Sure. So it takes a village. There's no one that has been in this room ever, even today, that has been there only by their efforts, even though they could have been humongous. We all know that. And I think with a position of power, it's very counterintuitive, but the more power you give, the more power you have. So learning that has been really transformational for me, in knowing that what I have, I share and I get more. That's not the way that division really works, but it works in this regard. And I'm going to say mentor, but you know what? I'm not going to say mentor. I'm going to say sponsor, because we know that Latinas and Latinos are over-mentored and under-sponsored. We need to change that. We need to be the ones that are sponsoring others. Thank you. We have the power to be sponsoring junior people, to be promoting them, to be putting them in the spotlight, to give them projects that may be a stretch skill, to take a risk on giving someone a job that may not be 100% qualified to do, but take a risk, mentor them, support them, be behind the scenes, supporting them in their new change. I think we have to do our part. And the more we do it, the more likely this room at some point maybe be empty because nobody will need the help of the Alumni Society. So let's go for that.
But we're keeping them here, we're all staying here. But maybe we'll keep growing it, right? And
right.
It'll be empty because they're off doing executive things, way too busy. But
yes, exactly.
Yes, the idea of both really matters.
Absolutely, that's exactly the case. So please do your part. You are sitting at this table, at this seat here because you've earned it, because you are in a position of leadership. So please use it for yourself, but also use your platforms for others.
I love that, thank you. And I really believe in what you said about the more we share power, influence, the more we gain because you know, you're surrounding yourself with other lights and helping them shine brighter, which I think is a goal for all of us. And the more we can do that, especially for Latinas, because we know how important that is. And I mean, who here knows an amazing Latina? I hope every hand goes up, right? At least a mom, a tia, or a coworker. And you know, as we know, we need to continue to advocate for not only conversations like this, but you all have been in rooms many people have imagined and maybe haven't even yet dreamed of. And so I'm curious from your perspective, what does that look like in terms of what's the big opportunity for Latinas in the workplace? And that, I'd love all your perspective on that.
I'm just going to add something to what Claudia had said on the Latinas. Like, we can sit here and it was like, oh, it's super easy, it's 3 of us, right? But sometimes, like you were saying, in our corporate worlds, we're like one of the few, like one of the onlys. And I had read the statistic and I shared it with our group that last year the UCLA Latino Policy Institute shared that the number of Latinas in the workforce has actually decreased because of the pandemic. So even though we were kind of destined to be like 25% of the workforce in 2029, the result of the pandemic on just the industries that most Latinas are in, the fact that culturally we take most of the burden of the housework and some other factors led to like there's less Latinas in the workforce now than there ever were before. So it's even more important in a call to action to sponsor and find those folks, especially Latinas. We're even fewer than we were pre-pandemic.
And especially when it comes to retention, right? If you can try to make sure people feel supported to stay, that's going to keep our numbers, hopefully keep them from declining. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
But I think the key opportunity is, I think we need to unleash our power. I think related to, Pedro said a word, ambitious, like we were a group who was seeking community who was ambitious. I struggled with that word growing up. I almost think like ambitious was wrong. Like it was wrong to,
it's always a negative
we
connotation.
grow up in a culture where everything is gracias a Dios, si Dios lo permite, right? Like you have to be so grateful for what you have that almost saying what you're going after
more, right?
It's like you're not content. So I struggled with the word ambition, but there's so much power in our community and we just need to unleash it and support each other and put ourselves first at times. So that's a big opportunity.
And just to briefly build on that, I mean, I'm definitely going to double down on Latinas, right? Even though it hurts to see so many have exited the workforce because of the pandemic, because it's not, you know, unknown that they are primary caretakers a lot of time. But I'm optimistic that when they, not if, but when they come back, that they can be more selective to work for firms and companies that more closely align with their values. And whether it's with flexibility, diversity, equity, and inclusion, that I think we're going to be more selective for who we work for, more so than ever. I'm also going to double down on Latinas and entrepreneurship. I think that there's going to be a rise in that because when we take a look at the financial autonomy that we're demanding, the pay equity that we require, also the flexibility and our drive for innovation and just natural born leaders, I just think it's going to be a phenomenal time. So a perpetual optimist here, love to turn opportunities and challenges into dreams coming true. So that's the perspective that I have on Latinas.
Yeah, I think even the diversity world is being disrupted and disrupted, which is incredibly important for us to bring about this opportunity. And I think COVID, with all the tragedy it has, it brought about so many opportunities for us to reprioritize, to pause, to reassess, to really design our time and our careers. Who do you want to spend time with? Who do you want to work for? How do your values align with what you're doing? I think this has been an incredible opportunity for those, hopefully, that took advantage of it to really rethink your approach. And I always say, look at your calendar the last 2 weeks. That will tell you where you're going. Are you really doing what you want to be doing? Are you really focused on the things that you said you're focused? Look at your calendar. It'll tell you what is your direction of your eyes, right? Where are you pointing to? So rethink how you spend your time, how you organize your calendar, and what are you spending time on. And I'm glad you're here, which shows that you're really going in the right direction.
Thank you for that. And thank you all for your take on that. So we're going to do Q&A in 4 minutes and 51 seconds. But in that time, we're going to do some rapid fire Q&A. So we know where you are now in some of your journey, but I'm curious from each of you, and it's like a one line or one phrase answer. What was your first 9-to-5 job?
I was an interpreter in Honduras for medical missions.
No way,
so,
wow.
Yeah, so that was my summer job. Loved it.
Okay, I have to limit myself from asking follow-up questions. We'll have to follow up online. Yeah, what was yours?
Yeah, I had a great experience. Actually, my first job in high school was managing the cash register, the drive-through at KFC. And honestly, without exaggeration, I consider it one of the best P&L management jobs at an early age. You had to close the books down to the dime. Yeah.
And I was a receptionist for a company that sold cattle. So
cattle?
Yeah.
Wow, we'll have to talk about that. Tengo unas vacas en Mexico. Actually, I'm seeing them tomorrow. Okay, so if you could work from anywhere, where would it be? And maybe you already are flexible, but if you could pick a destination.
Home, wherever that is.
Home. Okay. If you could pick a place where you decide home is, where it is
somewhere
now,
near
or?
the ocean.
Near the ocean. I love it.
Fiji, I've never been. It seems like a great option, right?
Okay, if anyone works at a travel company, airlines, let's get her to Fiji.
Yeah, it's like, I'll be right next to Claudia. Like, I just need a view of the water. Like, anywhere where I can see water.
That's beautiful. And so
We can co-work.
Yes, exactly.
we'll have to plan a Alumni Society co-working trip. We can all do a workcation.
Yes.
So this has come up, and it's sort of controversial. Some people think it's great, but the 4-day work week. Are you in favor of it, or do you think it's a dream that maybe isn't ideal for productivity?
4-day week, but available 5 days for sure.
Okay, so
and you
caveat.
don't have to be there, and you don't have to be there to be working. So absolutely, it works.
Great question. I think I'm on the fence only because I think flexibility is really what can lead to productivity and happiness. And so for some firms, it's 4 days. For other firms, it's something different. So it's, I'm all about the flexibility. Maybe 3 days, right? Maybe 2 days. Who knows, right? It's New World Order, so.
Okay. I think we all thought you were going to be against it. You took it even further. 2 days a week, whenever you feel like it. Cuando te da la gana. that was a plot twist.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But I think the key is flexibility. Like, I feel like I've taken advantage of some sort of flexible work arrangement, many times in my career, and the fact that we're not talking, and there's books written about the 4-day work week. So absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious. We have a couple more seconds. There are people in the audience in all levels of leadership, and you are the jefas at a very significant position in your careers. What would you say to people who want flexibility, but they're still on the come up? They're still getting there. You've earned a lot of us have to almost earn it, right, in the corporate setting often. What advice would you give to people who maybe aren't there yet and aren't even sure how to communicate about these things, but they're maybe at the earlier onset of their careers?
I think being great at whatever you're doing right now, however big, small, or is what gets you the credibility for people to trust that, like, you got it. So I think that has to come first, of the prove yourself and that you're taking whatever it is that you're doing incredibly serious and, like, doing the very best possible. And
Definitely.
I think the flexibility you get on the other end is quite
for sure.
I also think that this is the best time there's ever been to talk about flexibility. Now it's part of the lingo, it's part of everyday's conversation. It's not something you will be the only one asking for or talking about. So take advantage. This is the right time to be asking. Obviously, make sure that you give the right parameters, but I think this is the right time to be asking for flexibility regardless of the job that you have.
Okay, that's good input. Yeah. Well, thank you. We're going to switch over to Q&A in the room. So if you would actually, first, a round of applause, please. Thank you for this amazing their insights. Okay, so we do have mics. There's one up here. We saw a hand go up. So if you wouldn't mind, we can take that one first.
Greg Macias, I work with AARP, and I'm curious to your point about Latina women or Latinas leaving the workforce. What are your views on flexibility around? And like, how do you look at talent and not penalize gaps in careers for when they're left for caregiving or raising children? And another question is, across your own enterprises, how do you involve employee resource groups that are the Latino employee resource groups and bring up that talent?
Okay, so short form is, if women are leaving the workforce, how do you look at, how do we handle maybe gaps in the career or, changes when they're returning to work?
I think that there's a lot of companies that have these return to work programs. Before return to work was a thing for women that have been out, mostly women that have been out of the workforce for more than 2 years. I think those programs are becoming incredibly relevant and increasingly important to get back into the workforce, get a little bit of training, and then get placed within companies. I think those programs, and I'm sure we'll see much more like that are, because we want the experience that these individuals have had outside, even taking care of someone, which is obviously incredibly demanding, back to the workforce, giving them a little bit of help in a training period to then help them find a job within companies. So I'm sure we'll see many programs like that being developed so that you attract that talent back in.
The other point, just in my enthusiasm for entrepreneurship, right, there's also an opportunity to come back as a consultant and contribute that to the firm that was at some point maybe a previous employer or perhaps a new client. And so I think that there's a lot of value in that and a win-win. So I think that's another growing opportunity as well. And I'm actually seeing that across the board.
I think companies, we talked about retention and what you need to do to retain and being in positions of power and the responsibility that comes with it. I think we need to influence our companies, like, hey, if you really want to attract and retain this talent, you would need to have these benefits. And, I work for a company that has carer's leave that is totally different than sick leave, anything else, right? It's 8 weeks to take care of loved ones.
Wow.
And using those benefits, but also I think making the case for it, reintegrating folks who have come back, and we can be the voice in the room that can anchor what that conversation is and how they can do it. But, and the importance of ERGs as well, as you were asking, like, I do think the sense of community that they can bring, is incredibly important. In my interview process, I asked, like, can I speak with a Latina? And like, I think I need that as a reference point. I think they play an incredibly, not only from a community, from a business perspective, like, that companies need to continue to really tap into.
The organizations and the support they can bring to the individual.
Yes.
Thank you for that. Great answers, all of you. Thanks. There's another question here.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Irma Valdez, I'm an attorney. You guys are fantastic, all four of you. My question is, when you get off that stage, we're all going to bombard you, right? Because we feel your energy, we want to be you, we want to walk in your shoes very soon. Honestly, how do you guys recenter, re-energize yourself, right? Go back into your room. You have the responsibility of the workforce because you're leaders. How do you do that? And we are all interested. I'm interested because I'm a leader, right? I'm here today. How do we find space when we're the only ones constantly everywhere that we go? And you could be honest as you feel. I know it's a loaded question, but I would really want to hear the answer to that.
Okay, she said be honest. How do you recharge and recenter after?
I'm happy to take that one. There are a couple of things that I do with consistency that have really helped me throughout the years. One is I practice yoga. I teach yoga. I think that truly, as people say, health is wealth. And so I've never taken that for granted, right? More than ever, with this pandemic and without the pandemic, I've just always been a big proponent of taking care of self, because you can't take care of others unless you are in good form. That's just a fact. We hear it all the time. Whether or not we abide by it, it's a different thing. But I go out of my way to remind my team when I'm ready for my yoga class. Okay. So we can review that PowerPoint presentation for the 12th time tomorrow, but at 6 p.m. I got to hop on the subway and go to my yoga class, and it's all about prioritizing, right? And so we can actually manage that. Second thing that I do with frequency, as many of you I'm sure do, is I call my mom. She keeps me straight. She keeps me humble. And I'm first generation Mexican American. You know, she was born and raised in Mexico. And so simple things that sound so basic, but we're in the middle of chatting and she'll say, "Did you have dinner already?" Like, it's random, right? I'm like, actually, no, I haven't, and it's like 9 p.m. Eastern time. Or did you go to church? Well, not entirely. So, you know, these are the very important personal reminders, and she's at the forefront of my network that I mentioned earlier because she'll definitely keep me straight and humble. So for that, I'm grateful, but again, I have to take the initiative. So don't forget to call mom and practice yoga or meditate or do something to keep yourself healthy.
In my case, it's messy. No doubt it's messy. I am a single mother of 2 kids, 2 teenagers, which is obviously already challenging. I serve on 5 boards, 4 of which are not-for-profit. How do I center? By giving, because it's incredibly rewarding. So it's really, doesn't matter what I give, it really comes back in hordes. So that's how I do it.
I think for me, I've learned that I am not a great multitasker. And if I need to recharge, I need to be fully present in the thing that I'm doing. So there's 2 things that I remember, you know, when my oldest was little, like I picked her up from school one time on a Friday, and I'll go to the Fridays. And then I was on a call, and at some point afterwards, she's like, "Mommy, I wish you didn't have to work." And of course, like all of us have felt that. And you know, I was like, "So what do you think we don't do as a result of me working?" And she was like, "I just wish you weren't on the phone when you pick me up." I was like, "Oh," like she literally means, "I wish you weren't working." So I realized like I can't always be fully present with my kids, but I pick them up on Fridays. So my team knows after 3 p.m. on Fridays, I'm not available because it's fun on Fridays. Like I pick them up, but I'm fully present, right? Like, and I can't do that every day, right? Like I wish I could do it, but Fridays is our day. Or my husband and I have Thursdays. So I'm getting on a 6 o'clock flight, arrive at 7:50, going on a Thursday. And that's a new this year. We realized we were both running way too fast, and Thursday is our day before the weekend gets, so we have Thursdays. So in those I'm fully present, and the rest of the week it's messy and chaotic, but those 2 times I'm gonna be focused and present. And it helps. I look forward to Thursday and Friday. It's like almost there.
I feel like if this is motivation, anyone go on a Thursday. Everyone find someone, even if it's a Thursday. It's going to make it a thing.
Yes.
I love that. Similar, I mean, thank you for asking such a good question and get everyone's take on it. Meditation has been so important to me as well. And I think one of the things that, and maybe we can all support each other in this, is I often feel so regrounded when I talk to people who have known me, regardless of career, and also know where I want to go, that grounding in the why and where we started. And you said like the real stuff. I'm like, yeah, meditation tracks, essential oils. Like we need all that, all the help, all the things. Get a I have a curandera, I have a therapist. Get the whole squad on board. Okay, so we have time for one more question. And in red, the lady in red, I saw her hand go up first.
Hi, welcome, all of you. It's amazing. Very excited to be here. Question. Well, first, you mentioned mentoring, sponsorship. Aside from that, do you have any other thoughts on how we can build a strong Latina pipeline for the workforce? How do we get other Latinas prepared and ready to take on the challenges in the workforce when some of us are stepping down and moving on and going into the sunset? So how do we do that? Any ideas?
You know, so I think making people see themselves, like one of the things that I've loved about the pandemic is the virtual environment has allowed people to more easily make things accessible to like join a call, do a thing, than like driving somewhere. As much as I love being in real life and seeing many people that I haven't seen. But I think there's an opportunity for companies or for us to put more of what's possible in front of people in a way that's easy. Because to my point of like unleash our power, I think the pipeline is there. I think the power is there. Sometimes we hold ourselves back, right? Like you know, why, like will a tech company hire me? I've never had tech experience, right? Like, like maybe we sell ourselves short. So I think the more we're like, have you thought about this? Or like I don't know, I think putting the opportunities as way more accessible is something that, you know, we're trying to do, of like, see yourself here. There's room for everyone here, and you can see yourself here. It's going to be incredibly important.
The talent's there, just activating it. Yeah.
Yes, I love the word activate.
Yeah.
We could talk about that.
It's one of my favorite words
There was
too.
like, in the late 1900s, the twin, you remember those like, well, there were some twins, the super twins that say like super twins activate.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
It's really old. But like, I tell my kids it's my favorite word. They look at me with like glazed eyes.
You
Like,
said late
activate.
1900s. I was like, is this in the 30s?
My children remind me that I went to school in the late 1900s, which is literally true.
So that's before 2000. Got it. Okay. That's funny. Yeah. Any thoughts on pipeline?
I think that encouraging your junior team members to volunteer, to maybe get on boards, because that really helps you stretch your skills, give to others, meet other networks, expand your networks. I think looking for community is incredibly important. Helping them build that community, connecting them with others that could be in places of support and power, to be able to invite them at the table, so not only you would help them, but other people would help them because you asked. I think that showing to them what their blind spots are, but also telling them the potential you see that they may not see for themselves in themselves yet. I think that's incredibly valuable, and it helps with their reluctancy to step up or volunteer. I think we have this syndrome that we think we don't belong in the room, but if you are in the room, you belong in the room. So use your voice, use your chair, and make sure you open it up for others as well.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the efforts you all do in your respective spaces to do that. I'm so grateful. I know everyone here is inspired by your stories. I'm truly inspired, but I'm really grateful that you not only are sharing how you're paving the way for yourselves, but for everyone. That pipeline is activated because you're where you are.
We're trailblazing it. We're not just paving the way.
Yeah. Trailblazing. Okay, leveling up. If we started with paving the way, now did she name the next summit? Yep. Trailblazing summit. Yeah. Well, thank you all, and can we give them a round of applause?
Thank you.